Hi, Phil Conrad here for Computer Science 156 and w22. I'm recording a small introduction to the next video. The next video ended up being a lot longer than I had wanted it to be. The first time I recorded it was 20 minutes. Problem was, I forgot to share screen. So that video was useless, had to remake it. When I remade it, something went very wrong right in the middle. And I decided to just keep the video rolling rather than start over again and watch me go through the process of figuring out what was going wrong and fixing it. So you'll see everything's going along fine and making all the changes in the code. And at a certain point, I'm like, well, let's watch what happens. Now you should see the test fail. And the test doesn't fail. And then I make some more changes to the code and other things happen that I don't expect. I wonder if you will notice what's wrong. I did not at first. It took me a while to figure it out. But so I'll give you that that little challenge. See if you can figure out what's going wrong before I did in the video. And this is, by the way, one of the reasons it's great to have a pair partner, because a lot of times a pair partner will notice the thing that you're ignoring. In any case, this is why the video is a bit longer. It's about 40 minutes instead of 20 minutes. I apologize for that, but I hope there's some extra value in watching me struggle through a problem and then how do I get myself out of it. I hope that is helpful to you in some way. So in any case, here's the video. Hello everyone, Phil Conrad here from Computer Science 156 and w22. This is another video about team01. I actually recorded this video earlier, but I forgot to share my screen. So it was just like 30 minutes of me talking like this about code that no one could see. So this time I will remember to share my screen and hopefully this will go a little bit better. So we are working in part 2 of this lab. And yeah, there's the auto recording, 20 minutes of nothing, nothing helpful. This time we will actually start and try to do step 2.0, which is installing the VS Code extension for Lombok. If you click on this and then click on install, VS Code is required. Continue. Hopefully it will open up VS Code and install this. I already have it installed, but if you didn't, then this is where you would install that. And that will really help in a lot of cases. Inside the code, you may see things such as, let's see if I can find an example. Yeah, now I'm not finding an example, but let's see if I go up here and search for log dot. Yeah, there we go. There's an example. So we have this log.info right here. And this SLF for J is what gives us, that's part of Lombok, and that gives us this, the ability, if we put this SLF for J annotation on any class, then we can use log.info inside that class to print information on the log. Now, you may have heard about recently the log4j vulnerability. Well, guess what? This is the log4j they were talking about. That vulnerability is fixed in this version of log4j, so that's not a thing we have to worry about. But is indeed a large part of the Java infrastructure, which is why that bug affected so many, security vulnerability affected so many systems. In any case, that is step 2.0, so we'll move on to step 2.1, which is cloning the repo. I've already done that, and I think you know how to do that, so we're going to only do this part, which is try to run Maven Spring Boot Run. So let's do that. Let me cd into my team01 public demo, which is my copy of the repo. And I'm going to do Maven Spring Boot Run. And then we'll try navigating to the Swagger UI endpoint. So we'll give this a minute to come up and try out the various try out the various APIs. So now that this is up, I should be able to open a web browser and go to localhost 8080. And then this first link, Swagger UI, if I go to that, I should be able to pick out one of these, for example, the Earthquakes controller, and click on Get, and then try it out. I can put in, for example, a distance of 100 kilometers, a minimum magnitude of 2.5, click Execute, and then I get all of these this various information here about earthquakes. I could also take this request URL and go to another tab, paste it in, and get the same information. So that shows you what is happening behind the scenes here. This URL is what we would put into this application. You can see here on localhost 8080, API earthquakes get, and then these two, distance and min-mag, are my query parameters. And if we look at the code, so if we look at the earthquakes controller, just to get an idea of how this all fits together, you can see that in the earthquakes controller, there are these two API params, and there are also request parameters for distance and min-mag. This distance and min-mag are the parameters that are part of the query string. Everything after the question mark in a URL, these are query parameters. If you have multiple ones, they're separated by ampersands, like this and sign here. And then it's a key and values separated by equal signs. So distance equals 100, that's the first query parameter. Min-mag equals 2.5, that's the second query parameter. A query parameter, or request parameter, in this is another name for the query parameter. And this API param is simply the part that over in the Swagger UI puts this, allows us to build the documentation and gives us a way of creating a form automatically. Swagger creates a form for us where we can test it out. So those are all the pieces and how they fit together here. Let's go back now to the instructions. So that was step 2.1, where we're trying out the Swagger UI. And now we're ready to start coding. So in step 2.2, we're going to create a new branch here. If I do a get status, right now I'm on the main branch. To create a new branch, we would do get checkout -b, and then I'm going to start the name of the branch with my name, so Phil, and then hyphen. And in this video, I'm going to build a different service that is different from the other 6 that you've been asked to build. I'm going to call this my joke service. And in this this joke service is going to be based on, if I go here to the website and go under topics and then look down at APIs, there's some stuff here about APIs that I recommend that you read at some point. It describes 3 different meanings of the word API, and it turns out that all 3 of those definitions, definition 1, 2, and 3, are all being used in team01. But what I'm going to come down here to instead is this list of APIs. And on this list of APIs, there is one here called the joke API. The way this joke API works is you click on it, and every time you refresh the page with this URL, you get a new joke. So to prove he was right, the flat earther walked to the end of the earth. He eventually came around. Let's see. I hate Russian Matryoshka dolls. They're so full of themselves, right? Those are the nesting dolls. They're full of themselves. We do it again. I asked my wife if I was the only one she's been with. She said yes. The others were at least 7s or 8s. Oh, that's good. That's good. The only one she's been with. Right. Okay. So there you go. So that's the idea. There's our URL. We're going to build a service around this URL, and then in the next video we'll build a controller around this URL. So let's take a look at how this code works. What we're going to do is we're going to come over here, and we're first going to build a new service. And we see here in our code we have 3 services that are completely built out for us. And then we have the other 6 are stubs. So college Reddit, country code query, and earthquake query are all built out. The rest of these, location, public holiday, Reddit, tides, university query, and zip code, these are all just stubs that are there for you to fill out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create first a stub for my joke service. So I'm going to base it on the zip code query service. Actually, no, before I do that, let me mention one other thing, because maybe zip code's not the best choice. Let's look at each of these services and what they do. And you'll see is that each of them has a getJSON method. This one, college Reddit query service, takes no parameters. Country code, the getJSON method, takes 1 parameter, country. And earthquake query service takes 2 parameters, distance and min-mag. And these are the same as, if we go back to Swagger, these are the same as the parameters that you're going to be asking for on these different pages here, right? So it really all depends, what does your service need in order to return a result? If we look at the earthquake query service, the URL actually takes 4 parameters, min-mag, distance, latitude, and longitude. And if I were to take this and just copy and paste it into a web browser, and now I'm actually not using our code at all. I'm interacting directly with, let me try that again, interacting directly with the USGS, US Geological Survey website. What I need to do is replace this min-mag with, for example, 2.5. Let's say that's my min-magnitude. This distance I'm going to replace with 100, let's say 100 kilometers. And then the latitude and longitude I have to replace with some latitude and longitude. In this service, they're hard-coded as the latitude and longitude of Stork Tower. So I will go ahead and paste those in for the latitude and the longitude. I could have built this where we were also making those query parameters for the service we're building, but decided to hard code those instead. And you see I get back the earthquakes. And I can change this if I go with, let's say, a minimum magnitude of 5.0. We're going to get back pretty much nothing, because there haven't been any 5.0 magnitude earthquakes within 100 kilometers of Stork Tower. You know, we would know if there were. We would have felt it. So if we bring that back down to, you know, let's say 2, magnitude 2 earthquake can be nearby and you won't feel it. So this one, 24 kilometers southwest of Lombok, yeah, I didn't feel that. But you get the idea now that you can vary these parameters and get different results. But with this joke API, there are parameters you can vary, and if you want to learn more about that, you can read about that at the documentation for this API, which is here. You can actually pass in parameters to get jokes in different languages. They have jokes in, let's see, I'm trying to remember. Oh, here we go, the Getting Started guide. I think somewhere in here it talks about how, yeah, let's see, here we go. So available joke languages. I don't know what CS stands for. DE is German, Deutsch, English, Espanol, Spanish, French, and Portuguese. These are all the different languages you can get jokes in, and you can pass that in as a parameter and get jokes in other languages. We're not going to do that. We're just going to stick with, let me go back to it, this version, which is basically saying give me any type of joke and do it in safe mode, which means it's going to filter out jokes that it thinks might be offensive to someone. So since we don't have any parameters, that's going to be more similar to, if we go, for example, to this college Reddit controller, this one takes no parameters. When we put in our request, it just gives us back, let me go ahead and execute that. Oh, failed to fetch. I don't know why. Maybe I might have stopped. Oh, I guess I stopped my, I stopped the service. That's why. So let's start the service up again. Maven Spring Boot run. And when I execute this, it'll simply give me a list of college subreddits. So this is the one. Let's make sure that's up. Execute. And yeah, there's my list of college subreddits. And I can take that request URL, go up here to another browser tab, paste it in, and I just get back a list of college subreddits. No parameter required for this one. So that's going to be a good model for this joke service that I'm going to make. So I'm going to start my service by using, let me look at these different ones here. Get JSON for location takes a parameter. Public holiday takes 2 parameters, year and country code. Reddit query service takes a parameter. Tides takes 3 parameters, begin, end, and station. University query service takes a parameter. Zip code query service takes a parameter. It looks like they all take parameters. So I'm just going to go ahead and use zip code as my model here. I'll make a new file and call this joke. Let's try that again. Rename joke query service.java. And then I will paste in zip code query service, and I will change this to joke query service. Change this to joke query service. And then take out this parameter here since we don't have one. For the endpoint, if we look at these others, the endpoint is the URL that you're using. So in my joke query service, my endpoint is going to be, let's go back, this. It's going to be that URL. Now, if I did have parameters, they would go into the URL and they would go in braces. So, like say param1, something like that. We don't have that in this case, so I'm going to leave that out. And now I need to figure out the rest of the code that goes in here. So let's look at our college Reddit query service. And if I just take this code and copy and paste it in, and then we'll ask ourselves for each line of code, does it make sense? These first 3 lines of code are setting up headers that say we will accept. Now this list of media type text plain, I think actually that one is pretty much unique to the college Reddit query service. I think all the rest of these are accepting application JSON. So that's what I'm going to use, because what we expect to get back from our joke query service is application JSON. So let me copy all of, let's see, what did I just do? Did I paste? I pasted that into the zip code query service. That's not what I wanted to do. Let's grab this from the country code query service, paste it into our joke query service. Now let's go through this a little bit at a time. First of all, we have this log, and the log is coming up like, I don't know what this log is. If you want that log, you have to use this @slf for j. So let's go ahead and drop that on the top of our class. And the import for that, if I go to quick fix, it's Lombok extern slf for j. If you don't have the VS Code extensions to do this kind of automatic quick fix, then the other way you could do it is look in here and see what is the import for slf for j, and there it is. slf for j, by the way, is Simple Logging Framework for Java. So that takes care of the wavy line on log.info. But now what we're logging here was the value of the parameter. We really don't have a parameter, so we'll just get rid of that log. Doesn't really make sense in our case. HTTP headers needs a type. Again, I can use either the quick fix here. Now we have to be a little bit careful because it's import. There's 2 different imports, and it may not be clear which one we need. So the way to know is to look where we got this code from, and it was Earthquake Query Service. And look, that HTTP header, what import does it use? And it uses org Spring Framework HTTP headers. So that's the one that we're going to use as well. So we'll paste that in. That gets rid of that. Now the list of, there's Java util list is pretty much the one we want. Media type, again, there's multiple media types. that could be the import. So we'll go look and see what media type it is using in our source file that we're modeling after, and it's here on line 16, import org Spring Framework media type. We'll use that as our import. Map is going to be from Java util, so we'll just take the suggestion. Country, now URI variables, this only applies if you are actually substituting things into your endpoint, which we are not. So we're not even going to need that line of code. Now this HTTP entity is for the headers. We are going to need that. And quick fix, there's only one possible import, so we'll just take the suggestion. Response entity, only one suggested import, so we'll take the suggestion. URI variables, since we don't have any, we can just get rid of that parameter, and we'll just have endpoint, HTTP method, and string.class. This HTTP method, let's look and see. There are three possibilities. I already happen to know that it's the org Spring Framework HTTP, but if we didn't know, how would we figure that out? Again, we'd go back to Earthquake Query Service and see which one it is in that file. All right, so we've got our joke query service pretty well written here, and I think we are pretty much ready. Oh, we don't, since we're not using the log, we don't need the SLF for J anymore, so we'll take that out. It's always good to get rid of unused imports, so we'll take out those as well. And I think that is ready to go. So now we need a test for it as well. So let's go to our test code under test services. Let's look at our college Reddit query service test. And yeah, maybe that's not the best example. Let's instead use the earthquake query service test. I think that's going to be a better example for us. And we're just going to make a copy of this file. So I will make a new file and call it joke query service test.java. And I'll copy all of this code and paste it into joke query service tests. Change the name here on line 15. This REST client test is an annotation that says we are testing a REST client. That is something that goes out on the web and tries to get some information. And we tell it what class we are testing. So where the class we're testing is joke query service. And the name of our class is joke query service tests. This mock REST service server is something I talked about in lecture today on January 19th. So if you missed that, you can get the recording of the January 19th lecture. I'm actually still in the process of trying to post that. Been having some performance problems with GauchoCast today, but hopefully that'll get posted soon. This auto-wired, we also talked about that today in lecture. But as a reminder, joke query service. The idea is that we're auto-wiring this joke query service to be the thing that we are trying to test, and it will go out and instantiate that for us. Joke query service. It's wavy because we haven't used it yet. Down here where it says earthquake query service, we're going to change that to joke query service. And here, because we don't have to replace anything in our URL, we don't have any query parameters, we can just get rid of all this replace, and it will simply be the joke query service endpoint. We don't have these parameter values, so we can take that part out. The fake JSON result. Now this is where, we talked about this in lecture, the mock REST service server is going to stand in place of the actual service that is serving up the jokes. So this website, v2jokeapi.dev, is a real web server out on the web somewhere. That's not what we're testing. We're testing our code that is the wrapper around it. So when we do the test, we don't want our joke query service to talk to the real server. We want it to talk to a fake server. And so we set up this fake server here, mock REST service server, and we expect that server expects a request to this URL, and it expects these headers. And when it gets that request, it will respond with success and a fake JSON result. Now, if we wanted to be a little bit more realistic, instead of this fake JSON result, I could take this JSON right here and turn it into a string. It'd be a little bit unwieldy. Let's call this fake joke result equals. And it would be unwieldy because I would have to put this in quotes, and then I would have to get rid of all the new lines that are embedded in it, and all of the quotes inside, I would have to put backslashes in front of each one of them. And that's really annoying to do, and that's why this kind of fake JSON result is what we're actually using instead of setting it up to be a real, the real JSON that we would return, because it's good enough for our purposes. All we're going to do is make sure that we actually get this back. Now you might ask, what are we testing here? What we're testing is that this joke query service actually sends a web request out to that URL and that it has the right headers on it. That's what we're testing. So in any case, we don't want to use the earthquake query service. We want to use our joke query service. The lowercase j here is because this is an instance of the class as opposed to the class itself. Our getJSON method does not take any parameters, so we won't pass any. And now our test is ready. So we're ready to try running our test. So let's come over here and we'll do Maven test. The first time I run the test suite, I'm going to run the entire test suite, but that takes a while. And I'll show you then a way that you can just run a single test from the test suite. And that is much, much better if you're just working on a single unit of code and the test for that unit, and you don't really need to run all the other tests. So this time all of our tests worked, but if we did want to, for example, let's suppose we wanted to see that test fail. What could we do? We could come back to our joke query service, and instead of returning re.getBody, let's return this is not a correct result. Now that will work if I comment this out because the return type is string and we are returning a string, so this will compile, but it should make the test fail. Rather than running the entire test suite, I'll do maven test -d test equals and give it the name of the specific test that I want to run, which is this joke query service tests class. So I'll put that. Maven test -D test equals joke query service test. Notice there are no spaces around that. Hit return. I should see the test fail. And if the test fails, I should see it fail with, hey, I expected this fake JSON. What? That's not what I expected to happen. All right. Where did I go wrong in my thinking? Well, let's take a look. So here I have return, this is not a correct result from my joke query service. Okay, fair enough. Joke query service tests, I am checking, and we're running against the joke query service. I honestly don't know why that didn't fail. So let's do a Maven clean. And then let's run that test again. It is possible that it didn't, there we go. And that's, let's see, no tests were executed. Interesting. Okay, what happened here? Did I get the name of the class wrong? Joke query service tests. No, that's the name of the right class. Well, this is disappointing. Let's try one more time here. Let's just do Maven test. And it was going so well up to this point. All right, so we're running through the tests. Okay, and this time it ran 9 tests and we had no failures. And I am truly at a loss because my joke query service clearly is returning something that is not correct. And my joke query service tests should be catching that. Joke query service.getJSON. Let's try this. So this is where we can use our @SLF for J, and then we can come down here and we can say log.info actual result equals, and then let's print out our actual result. So maybe this is good that this is happening because it's allowing us to see some things we might not otherwise have seen. So let's see. I don't know why that is complaining. I think that's just a glitch in VS Code. So let's just see what happens when we run Maven test. And hopefully we will see that output and we'll have some clue as to what's going on. Okay, so let's see if we scroll back to look for specifically our joke query service tests. I am not seeing it. Get status. I see the problem. I see the problem. The entire time I have been working in the wrong VS Code. I have been working in private team01 AutoGrader. Now, what's good about this is that it illustrates how you can, when your attention is focused on one thing, you can completely miss something else. Earlier this afternoon, I was fixing a problem in the AutoGrader. And so let's take a look. If I go into GitHub and go into UCSB CS156 w22 and then go into private team01 AutoGrader and do a get status, there are my changes to the joke query service and the joke query service test, and this explains why nothing was making any sense. Fortunately, because of the magic of Git, the fact that I've been making all these changes to the wrong code base, not the end of the world. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come down here, and you can see that I've got a clean branch, fill joke, nothing to commit, working tree clean. I'm going to open up VS Code in this directory, and here I'm going to look, and you can see I have no joke controller, and I have no, do I have a joke service? I have no joke service. I have no joke service tests. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply come over here. I'm going to grab my joke query service. Don't know if this will work, but I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to copy, and I'm going to go over to services, and I'm going to paste. Hey, look at that. Look at that. And then I'm going to go to my joke query service tests. I'm going to copy, and I'm going to go down to the test directory with services, select it, and I'm going to paste. And oops, that did not work. Let's undo that. Fortunately, undo works. I need to select there and then paste. There we go. Now it's in the right spot. Now what I can do is come back to my the AutoGrader directory where I made these changes, and I don't want these changes in the AutoGrader. So what I can do is I can simply do git reset --hard main. And what that does is it will reset. The reset --hard means make the local directory match what's on main. So now I do a get status. Whoop, that didn't work. Oh, I see why. I see why. Because these are untracked files. They're not in get yet. So that would have thrown away any changes I made to files that were already in get. But since these are untracked files, all I have to do is remove them. So remove starter code source main Java edu UCSB CS156 Spring backend demo services joke query service, and then remove, and this time I'll just copy and paste this. Get status, working tree clean. Now come back over here and let's do Maven test. And now we should see a much more sensible result. So this was kind of a goof on my part, but I'm going to leave it in the video because I want you to see that I make mistakes, I get confused, and how do I get myself back out of it? All right, now this is what we expected to see earlier. Joke query service test, expected fake result, but this is not a correct result. Now, if I want to run just that one test, -d test equals joke query service tests, and it should run just the one test. That one test will fail. And it did. Test run 1, failures 1, and there's the failure. Let's go back in. I don't think we're going to need this log.info anymore, but we'll leave it in for now. It won't hurt anything. Joke query service, let's change this back. I'm going to take this out and return the correct result. And then run the test again. And it passes. So if I want to be really confident, I'll run the entire test suite again just to be sure that all is well. But I will also, at this point, let's go back to the original assignment. And we implemented the service. So we did step 2.3. We implemented the test for the service. And at this point, we could just go on to step 2.5, implement the controller and implement the controller test. What I'm going to do instead, though, is I'm going to go ahead and make a commit because we've got a service and we've got a test, and the tests are passing. So if I do a get status, you see I've got my joke query service, my joke query service tests. I'm going to do get add dot get status, and there are my files. And now I'll do a get commit -m added service and tests for service for jokes. And then I will get push origin, and not main, but my branch, fill joke. All right, well that gets us down through step 2.4, and we already have videos in place from step 2.5 onward. So we will end this video here. Thank you for bearing with me through that slightly painful going awry, but I hope that it was helpful in some way. Okay, thanks.